In this video, we're going to be taking our Sony Mocopi motion capture data from this to this, showing you how you can supercharge your Sony Mocopi while cleaning it up with iClone 8. Note this is for the original Sony Mocopi with only 6 sensors. At the time of this recording, a Pro version is slated for release with 12 sensors, which will probably reduce the effort involved in the process below. But these are the primary techniques I use every time I clean up my motion capture data to get the best results. Of course, your own performance will vary from mine, but these steps should help you see what to expect from the cleanup process. For context, I recently developed this character, the Fae Warrior, for the Reallusion content store. Her primary weapon of choice is throwing knives, but I don't have any throwing knife animations, so I needed to record them, and to do that, I went straight to the Sony Mocopi. To be fair, this example that I recorded is particularly challenging for the Sony Mocopi. The twisting and the turning motions, the quick arm movements, it's all a lot for 6 sensors to capture and interpret, but hopefully you'll see just how much we can save with iClone 8. To start, obviously you'll want to give yourself the best chance of success. That starts during the recording phase. Personally, when I record, I like to recalibrate before every single performance. I tend to see sensor drift over time with the Mocopi, so starting fresh each time does help me. Additionally, I would highly recommend it, if you can, getting reference footage from your performance. I've done cleanup with and without reference footage, and I have to say that the reference footage does yield better results. Yes, it is an extra step, but it's definitely worth it. If you're going to do this, I would recommend recording the video at 60 frames per second with a higher shutter speed of around 1/120 to eliminate any motion blur. You'll see that I left my camera at my standard 24 frames per second, and while serviceable, the motion blur does have an impact. Once you record your motion capture data, review it and make adjustments if you need to. I also recommend renaming each file after each take so that it is more recognizable when you send it over to your computer. Since this records to my phone, I uploaded everything through Google Drive to transfer it to my computer, and just like that, we're ready to go. Now we can dive into iClone 8 and use the powerful tools it provides to help clean up the performance. I tend to always use animation layers, motion correction, and smoothing during the cleanup process, but the order in which I use each really depends on the performance. First, we can start off with reviewing the motion capture data. Before I do that though, I'm going to make sure my reference footage is up and available on my second screen. Now, you can drag and drop the mocap data onto your character directly into iClone 8, and it will recognize it as coming from the Mocopi and retarget it for you. Let's play the animation back and see where we need to make some adjustments. So we do have a lot of cleanup in this one. The recording is okay, the information is there, it just needs some fine tuning. For this performance, I think it'll be best if I clean up the overall performance first, and to do that we're going to be using animation layers. The next thing I want to tackle is the primary poses, or the key poses of the animation. This is something that I've gleaned from keyframe animation, but these are the main poses that are most identifiable in the performance. Instead of fixing everything frame by frame, targeting these specific poses should help the interpretation of the data in between each key pose, resulting in less work for us. So one of the things you'll notice with the Mocopi data, at least this happens with me a lot, is that the shoulders tend to be kind of bunched up. That could be from my own performance, or it could be in association to just how the data captures. One of the things that I found is the easiest to do is I go into my animation layers, so we have our primary one here, and I go into edit motion layer. So this is kind of a non-destructive way of going about this, and I like to take the shoulder and press it down. But you see when I do that, it's going to naturally rotate the arm down with it. What I have found you can do is you can lock the hand in place, and then when I push that elbow or that shoulder down, we're getting a little bit more of a natural movement. It's keeping the positioning of the hand, which is good. And I find then you have to do a little less cleanup after the fact. So we're gonna do the same thing over here. We're gonna lock that hand down. I'm gonna go into the shoulder, pull it down a little bit. Let's just see what that looks like now. Okay. So of course, like the way that these arms are now animating is just makes it look real lame. So if we look back here, you can see I have my arm down further and this arm higher up. So what I'm going to do is get that set right now. So we're gonna go back into our edit motion layer. And typically what I like to do if I'm adjusting the arm is I like to adjust the shoulder first, if I need to. Doesn't necessarily seem like I do, but the elbow is certainly pushed in a little too far. So we can bring it back down here. And actually, as I look at it, I am going to adjust this elbow and shoulder. I'm gonna actually push it a little bit more forward because what I'm seeing in my performance is that I did that. And then I'm gonna rotate it back out a bit right here. And then we're gonna rotate it down a little bit. And of course, based on the way that I recorded my thing straight on, I do not have eyes on what the hand was doing. So we're gonna have to come back to that later, but we're gonna adjust the hands on a separate animation layer. So now I need to adjust this other shoulder. So with that set, I'm gonna bring this arm back here, and then I'm gonna rotate like this. Okay, I need to get that elbow up a little bit more, and now a little further back. It looks like my shoulder needs to come forward a little bit. So here we go. It's looking a lot better. Rotate this around. There we go. And what I see with my performance too is that I have a lot more of a crouched posture. Obviously that's going to be something that's going to be hard for the Mocopi because of it has sensors on the ankles, you do have the waist, and then just on the arms and the head. So it's kind of interpolating that data. So I'm going to bring more down into a crouched pose. And then one of the other things we do see is I kind of have my stance a little offset. So we have this flat foot back here, and this foot up. So I'm going to take that, rotate it just a bit. And one of the things I do like to do is put foot contacts on. That's going to help a little bit. And then we got to slide this foot back in the front and rotate. Okay. So that means I need to clear the hips a little bit like that. Position it back here a little bit. See if I can. Yep. That looks pretty good. And then I'm gonna rotate this knee out just a bit here. So I got that primary pose here. So now, as I scrub along, my next primary pose that is rotated straight, hand it straight out, and then we can see the positioning of the hips and the shoulder as well as the head. From here, I'm essentially doing the same thing for each primary pose or key pose, reviewing the motion capture data against my reference, specifically targeting arms, feet, hip position, and shoulders. In the interest of time, I will speed through the rest of this animation layering, but two things I will recommend. Set a camera in iClone to match the view of your reference footage, then lock it down so it doesn't move. You can even bring up a mini viewport and set it to the camera so that, as you make your edits, you always have a view of the animation from the perspective that matches your reference footage. This really helps keep your motions in consistent orientation for a more uniform result. Additionally, you can use multiple animation layers. For instance, I did the base key motions on this layer, then shifted to adjusting the hands and the arms further on a different layer. But again, for time's sake, I'll save you from the repetitive task of analysis and adjustment. But I have recorded it all, and if you are interested and think it would be of value to you to see the full process along with the small struggles that popped up along the way, let me know in the comments section below, and I can upload that for a more in-depth look at this process. Mostly, it's making the adjustments, playing the animation back, and adjusting where the issues present themselves. Another thing I will note, using these animation layers in this manner, you can enhance your performance as well. For instance, when I recorded the data, as I physically moved closer to the camera, I did not give as an aggressive of a performance as I should have. But I can adjust that with the animation layers, building up a little bit more kinetic energy by twisting the body back or holding the arm closer to the body longer in order to make the throwing motions quicker and more impactful. Once the animation layers have been adjusted for, we can now address the issue of the foot sliding. Before we do that, I'm going to bake all of my data down at this point. I will save a backup copy of the file in case I need to come back to it, but this is essentially going to bake all of our changes down to the base layer again, allowing us in essence to start as if it was a new motion capture file. So what I would do with the feet, typically, is I would go into motion correction, and this is a great way to kind of lock down the feet. And we have quick turn here, so we got toe, toe. And just to show you, we can hit correct. Let's see what that does. So you can see it's locked everything down. And now I can hide that floor, and you can see where it's put the toe placements. So honestly, it's not bad, but that one is. And then it has to like connect back over. So you know what, we're gonna use it. It's just very difficult sometimes with the sliding feet. So we're gonna go in here. I'm gonna delete this box because we don't need it, and the floor was just for a reference, so we're gonna take that away. So we're gonna go into reach, make sure that that is activated so we can see when our character locks its feet down. Let's see here, we've got left toe on, it's already locked down. For some reason it's snapping into place. Interested to know. Okay, there we go. That was because it was the first frame had a lean in. So there we go. Let's take that left foot and just see. Good twist there. I like that. Not bad. Snaps on to that right foot. So we go right toe. You can see a little bit. So when it comes to these reach, you have a little bit of a fall off here. So when it says, okay, we're gonna let go, and so it doesn't just pop right off, it usually has a good transition, but you can see this one is actually messing up that back right toe because it's still semi-locked down. So what we can do in order to adjust for that is I can bring this back a little bit. It's the right toe. And that's not bad. So then we need where it hits. And the reason I did this and not have the feet activated is it's helping with just the toe rotation. If you had the feet locked in, it would lock the entire foot down, which would make it a little bit more challenging. You might actually have to do some manual cleanup after that. That's kind of nice because it does lock it in place, and we can prevent that foot sliding. Obviously you can see that it does have a little bit of jitter there as the foot needs to come back. But I also want to keep that locked on. Otherwise, where's our animation actually end? Oh, the animation ends back here, so we don't even have to worry about that at that point. It's this left foot now, our left toe. So one of the things we can do with that guy is we're going to go into the motion control. There's the left toe. We can actually drag this guy back over here, or wherever we want that final position to be. Of course, we're going to have to transition our character's body over, because right now you can see that the body just wants to lean back. So let's adjust for that. So we're going to have to go back into our animation layer, click on our character. I'm going to just add a new layer altogether, especially just for this end piece. So that really starts right here, that transition back. I'm gonna go modify, edit motion layer, set a key, bring it to where that character's supposed to be. I'm gonna transition that hip placement over here. So now she comes back and she's locked in. Real nice. Just want to go back down to that. Even though I know the position's ending, just drag it past a little bit. So now we have our character locked in on every foot placement and comes back into the right position. Beautiful. And now it's all about adjusting for the transitions, ensuring there's smooth movement as the feet approach the reach targets. Sometimes you'll need to adjust the actual target itself and line it up more with where the foot is intended to go, but this is a great way to ensure your character does not slide in the world during the performance. The final step for this project is removing any outstanding jitters. This performance did not have a lot in it, but I will take you through the process with the curve editor. So again, I'm going to save this as a version 3, just in case I want to come back here. It's always good to have redundancy. And I'm going to do the same thing where I'm just going to flatten these motions with constraints. So that's what it's going to do, is it's going to bake down all of my information again. So now that we've done that, we don't need these motion control pieces anymore because our character's no longer using the reach target to constrain the performance. So that's good. So what we're going to do is we're going to look at our character and we're going to go into the curve editor. So that's going to present all of our transition points. Now, in order to go down into your base motion layer, which is going to be where all of that information, where the jitters probably are happening, you need to unlock the base layer. So I'm going to go ahead and first it unlocks it, and then you have to unlock it again. So you have to have that unchecked mark. It's just trying to help you not mess up any of this information because this will be destructive in its nature. We can see that, oh, it's the leg jitter specifically. If we want to address that left leg jitter at the beginning, you can do that. So typically you can say search for leg, which is not there. It's probably going to be the thigh and the calf and all that. So here we go. We got all of these. You can hit F. It's going to show everything. It's going to kind of draw it out to a position. You can see all the transform data that exists within that left foot. So what I typically would do is I'd start with going to filter and Butterworth smoothing. So this, as I understand it, goes and tries to preserve your performance as much as possible while taking out as much jitter. So you can hit apply, and I like to get off of the curve editor so that it increases the performance of my system. So, not bad. We also have the jitter in the right leg, so let's go ahead and try to adjust for that as well. So, we're going to go right thigh and through foot. Hit F, do all that, select them all, filter, Butterworth smoothing, apply. You can see it has actually done something. And then a little less jittery, as you can see that little pops, but they still do have a little bit of pops there. That's more to do with the constraints and what happened there. So if you want to do further refine, typically what I do after using the Butterworth smoothing is then I would go in and go to filter, smooth. And I tend to go with the factor of 4, and I'll hit apply. So that smooths out even more. It's not bad. Not bad. Well, let's do that again with our left foot and leg. Okay. F. Zoom out a little bit. Filter. Smooth. Power. Okay. Now let's see. Honestly, a lot of the performance is what it is at that point. But this is a technique that I've used, especially with kind of talking to the camera motions that have had a little bit of jitter in them. It kind of looks a little bit off-putting. Going through those smoothing effects has really saved a lot of my performances in the past, so they're definitely worth investigating and making sure if you do have kind of big jitters. I have also kind of brute forced it, and I've selected everything, which is, depending on your system, he might not like you for trying it, but I have also gone through, selected everything, gone into both of those processes, Butterworth smoothing and that, and it's helped smooth things out even more. So we can see right here, I'm pretty happy with how this animation's looking. That knee pop probably will bother me. The final piece that I would say is if you do have any of those really rough and tumbly shots, you really just need a better transition. But my kind of last ditch effort that I'll leave you with is to take those motion layers. I can unlock the base layer again, and then I go into it and then I delete out some of those keys and allow essentially a keyframe animation to interpolate between the last 2 points. So see that big pop on. And so this will just be for demonstration because I actually want to keep that. We go on the left leg. I'm going to delete that keyframe. There's that big pop. Boom. There we go. I've deleted those. And so now we have a little bit of a smoother transition than that big pop. And now we have a cleaned up animation. Again, this is a pretty challenging animation for the Mocopi. With all the twisting and turning and the volatile motions, it's a lot to ask of 6 sensors. Most of the recordings that I have done up until this point have not needed this much cleanup, but it's always good to know the capabilities of your system to ensure you're setting yourself up for success. I will assume this will only get easier as Sony progresses towards their Pro version of the system. Yes, it does take some time and it does take some effort, but as you get used to the workflow, you become more familiar with where the consistent issues are, and then it goes faster and faster. The next step would be adding the throwing knives, constraining them to the hand and then releasing them. And if you want to learn how to do that, let us know in the comment section below. Otherwise, you can check out our How to Animate a Bow and Arrow in iClone 8, as it's a very similar concept. My name is Eric from Libertas Video, and I'll see you in the next one.